When Apple released the original iPhone in 2007, there was a high starting price that many of us would actually want for the current iPhones today. But in 2007, Apple had something in mind that would make it more affordable for users to access the new smart interface of the multi-touch world, and that was the iPod Touch. But we have to ask ourselves, was the iPod Touch supposed to be better than the iPod Classic? Hey guys, I'm Ethan from Alumni Tech 47, and today we are going to be looking at a retro look at the first ever iPod Touch and seeing what it has done for the Apple Music industry, as well as looking at the usability of this iPod Touch. Now, Apple has been selling iPods for about 6 years at the release time of the iPod Touch, but after all the improvements that the iPod Classic, Nano, and Shuffle did for them, they wanted to see how the iPod would do with this touchscreen interface. So they took the iPod Classic and basically formed it to place a 3.5-inch display on it. Gone away were the click wheel and lock switch at the top. Like the iPhone, the iPod Touch now has a home button at the bottom, as well as a sleep/wake button at the top. But that's not all. Apple also added great features similar to the iPhone, like Wi-Fi, an accelerometer, as well as their iPhone OS user interface. But let's quickly dive into the design and features of the first iPod Touch. Since this is an iPod device, you have to start with the shiny and very scratchable backside that holds information about the iPod unit. Here you see the Apple and iPod in the center, and below you see the storage as well as other product information like the IMEI, serial, and model number for this iPod. At the top of the iPod Touch, you see the black plastic Wi-Fi pass-through antenna, which is to contemplate the metal back. On the other side, you see the sleep/wake button, which is on the left side of the iPod, looking at it from the front. They would place it here until 2010 when Apple would shift it to the other side like the other iPhones. The bottom of the iPod, as well as around the front of the iPod, is this aluminum band that makes the iPod Touch look like an iPod Classic. Unlike the iPod Classic, the headphone jack is placed on the bottom of this iPod, but the 30-pin dock connector stays where it's supposed to be. The bottom side of the iPod Touch still looks beautiful and modern with the current Apple devices they sell today. On the front of the iPod Touch, you have the glass screen with a home button that is a little smaller than all the other home buttons on every single Apple device sold. But it still does its job, and it made this iPod Touch a little bit cuter than it already is. Now this iPod Touch runs the same great OS that the iPhones run. You have all the great apps including Safari, Mail, App Store, and Music app. But I sadly cannot get Temple Run on here. When Temple Run was initially released, it was only built for devices running iOS 4 or higher. But with Safari, I can load websites, but images struggle and videos don't work. And with the Music app, I can utilize the cover flow feature as well as see lyrics and album art. And all the other apps on here except for YouTube work just fine. Now there are some things that the first ever iPod Touch lacks. Apple intended this to be like the iPod Classic, like I said, but some things in this iPod make the software on here a little bit more limited than usual. The most significant things that this iPod lacks is a speaker and volume controls. If you want to use those features, you have to plug in headphones that have a volume control. This iPod Touch also does not have Bluetooth. Such stuff like AirPods and wireless speakers won't work unless you plug a Bluetooth transmitter into the headphone jack. This iPod also lacks a camera, but at least you can sync photos that you have taken elsewhere onto this iPod Touch. Something that is missing but not entirely missing from this iPod is a lot of storage. The current iPod Classic sold at the time can be configured to 160 GB, but this iPod Touch can only go up to 32 GB. Now 32 GB is pretty good for something this old, but by the time Apple offered this option, the App Store and apps for this thing are already starting to take up storage on this device, but at least the storage here is flash based and not hard drive based. Shifting quickly over to the usability of this iPod Touch, you can still kind of use it today. The battery on here holds a charge and supports the underpowered device very well. The screen may be blurry, but you can get by using it for the Music app. But if you want to use other features of this iPod, you can, but you would be much better off using a newer iPod Touch that has more features and a faster processor. But the first ever iPod Touch is not all that bad. The reason why they removed so many features from the iPhone here is so that it could be more affordable to users who would want the multi-touch user interface. In 2007, everyone wanted what Apple had just invented and blew all the other smartphones out of the water. And at least Apple listened to customers about affordability with their products. But Apple was sure to gain success on the iPod Touch as well. Over the next few years, the iPod Touch became a great device to have for any occasion. Apple sold millions and millions of iPod Touch units across the world. and they also improved on the iPod Touch as the years went on as well. But the iPod Touch has to start somewhere, and this is a perfect example of a transition from the classic days of the iPod to the touch days of the iPod. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, hit that subscribe button for more videos. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so that you don't miss a single video. Like and comment down below on what you think about the iPod Touch and if you ever owned the first ever iPod Touch. If you're interested, follow me on Instagram and Twitter at AlumniTech47. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.